The modern tarot is a deck of 78 illustrated cards, and that's basically it. From a purely descriptive point of view, that's essentially what the tarot is, just a bunch of cards with pictures on. So why do some Christians have an intense disliking of it? For many Christians, the tarot is said to be bad news because of what it can be used for, such as telling the future. The argument is that as practicing divination, that's telling the future, is forbidden in the Bible, Christians believe this is why they should not use the tarot. However, there are many things that are forbidden in the Bible, such as eating shellfish or wearing clothing with mixed materials, but you don't hear many Christians condemning people for eating oysters or wearing easy iron polyester cotton shirts. The actual origins of the tarot are disputed, but a popular theory has them coming from Italy in the 14th century and originally being created as a set of playing cards, nothing more. Of course, as with many things in life, things can be used in all sorts of different ways. The tarot can be used as a way of trying to predict the future, or it can be used in the same way one might go to a therapist for help to work through a particular problem, which is my preferred way of understanding it. Trying to predict the future is not how I believe the tarot should be used, for the simple reason that, as Master Yoda says, the future is always in motion. If the future is fixed and determined in some way, then that raises huge problems concerning the matter of free will. Instead, I believe we should use the tarot in the same way the high priest in Israel used the Urim and the Thummim to help them discern God's will. For example, so the Lord said to Moses, "Take Joshua son of Nun, a man in whom is the spirit of leadership, and lay your hand on him. Have him stand before Eleazar the priest and the entire assembly, and commission him in their presence. Give him some of your authority so the whole Israelite community will obey him. He is to stand before Eleazar the priest, who will obtain decisions for him by inquiring of the Urim before the Lord. At his command, he and the entire community of the Israelites will go out, and at his command they will come in." The Urim and the Thummim were objects that were kept in the ephod, that's the breastpiece, of the high priest, so they may be over Aaron's heart whenever he enters the presence of the Lord. Thus Aaron will always bear the means of making decisions for the Israelites over his heart before the Lord. The Urim and the Thummim were simply objects that helped the high priest make decisions. The important thing to keep in mind is that whenever they were consulted, they were used to make inquiries in the presence of God. For me, the tarot can act like a modern-day Urim and Thummim. They allow us to open ourselves up to a deeper understanding of God's wisdom and knowledge, to reflect and consider our lives in ways we might not have thought of doing, and allow our thinking to travel in different directions. All this sounds very positive, but before we go out and buy a tarot deck, we should consider the words of the Apostle Paul, who in response to a question about eating food sacrificed to idols wrote, "We know that an idol is nothing at all in the world, and that there is no God but one. But not everyone possesses this knowledge. Some people are still so accustomed to idols that when they eat sacrificial food, they think of it as having been sacrificed to a god. And since their conscience is weak, it is defiled. But food does not bring us near to God. We are no worse if we do not eat, and no better if we do. Be careful, however, that the exercise of your rights does not become a stumbling block to the weak, for if someone with a weak conscience sees you with all your knowledge eating in an idol's temple, won't that person be emboldened to eat what is sacrificed to idols? So this weak brother or sister for whom Christ died is destroyed by your knowledge. When you sin against them in this way and wound their weak conscience, you sin against Christ. Therefore, if what I eat causes my brother or sister to fall in sin, I will never eat meat again, so that I will not cause them to fall." The tarot is just a deck of cards, but for some it is believed to be a dangerous tool of Satan. Some people have a real fear of what these cards can do and represent, and we should respect that. Although the tarot can be used positively to help us reflect on life choices in the presence of God, if you in any way feel uncomfortable with the idea of using them, then don't use them. Not everyone is where we're at on our journey with God. Some people are spiritually stuck and feel they need a little extra help, but the important thing is not to cause anyone to stumble by our actions. If you don't feel comfortable with the idea of using the tarot, then don't use them, or encourage others to do so. It's as simple as that. Finally, although the tarot can help us spiritually, it must never become our first love. It must never replace Christ at the center of our life. It's easy to get caught up in the mystery and excitement of using them, but as Christians, we should always first spend time in prayer and studying God's Word before pulling out the cards. As with the Urim and the Thummim, if we ever feel led by God to use the tarot for guidance, then we must do so, always holding it over our heart in the presence of God.